All right, let's face it. In high school, we all had that one English teacher. Well, that English teacher is me. I'm Brian Kulak, a career educator and author of The Hot Seat. Every week, I reconnect with former students, colleagues, and fascinating people to explore who they were, who they are now, and the wisdom they've gained along the way. Welcome to The Hot Seat. Bob, welcome. I'm not going to go through the whole preamble again. I'm sure people who listened heard, but and you probably did too. I was just talking about how your class, and we'll get into the actual show in a second, but your class in 2002 was so small and so intimate and close and kind. I want to talk more about that as time goes on. You know, I had Kaylee on earlier in the year. She and I are still super close, and it just was a great class. And I think we got away with it. Got away with a lot because of your collective personality. But we'll get into that in a second. You know, each week we start the show with who you were then and who you are now. So kind of walk us through high school Bob and who Bob is now.
Well, high school, I think I was more like already knowing where I was going. Like I knew I wanted to teach for a long time. But I think what's changed now is just realizing what life is because, you know, now I'm married, I have a daughter. So it's different because it was more or less next step is this, next step is that. Now I'm like, oh man, you know, my daughter's 9, but she already telling me how much she wants to go to rowing. I'm like, oh, well, wait a minute. Don't grow that fast on me, kid. You know,
a prophet heart. I love it.
Yeah. Well, my dad went there. I went there.
Yep. Where'd your sister go?
My sister went to Stockton.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Who are you now? Tell us all about the grown-up version of you.
You know, I lost my hair completely. They knew that was happening in high school, but I think I've been through a lot more. You know, as a kid, you go through things and you're like, you know, whatever. But as an adult, you go through a lot of different things. It doesn't necessarily mean, you know, health. It could mean, you know, monetary struggles or anything. But you go through them all, and you learn how to get through it in a different way. Like whether it's keeping your faith or whether it's, you know, some digging down deep to go through it.
Yep.
You find that way that works for you, and you just got to keep doing it. I mean, Monica talked about that last week. You know, everything she went through, and you know, making sure that you dig down and do what you need to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think our high school versions of ourselves can't really conceptualize the adult things we go through. It would be nice if our high school versions of ourselves and the idealistic future we build for ourselves hands out, but it rarely does. I mean, I'm certainly not living the life I thought I was going to at 49, but this is my life, right? Your life is your life. You make of it what you can. But I love the idea of digging down because who knows, at some point on the show, there could be somebody who says, I couldn't anymore. I had to give up, you know, and you're right. I thought Monica's show, John Dyer, a while back talked about that a little bit too with his divorce. And a lot of these shows have kind of turned into these mini therapy sessions, which I guess the hot seat really is, based on, you know, recollecting who you were then and then thinking about who you are now. And either there's a really wide chasm between those two people or not. For me, I just think that I couldn't have predicted, you know, how I got here. But as I said to you and to anybody who would listen about the show, like I'm just so fortunate this social media exists, even just for this purpose, to reconnect with people like you. That class, like I said, I remember well. I think it was 8th period, if I'm not mistaken.
It was 8th period. It was me, John Cleary, Steve Clune, Ed Thurston, Nate Schill, Matt Hafner, Lauren Solomon, Kaylee, Jenny Kerfoot. We went down the line, and of course the mixtape was awesome. You know, doing that project.
So what do you remember really, Bob, about 8th period English? I mean, it was a long time ago. What sticks out?
I remember your first easel question was the ultimate oxymoron.
Okay.
And we were doing the hot seat. I remember reading Othello.
Yep.
And doing the video for it.
Yep.
You know, and then, you know, of course, you know, doing Othello as opposed to doing Hamlet, it was a little bit different. Of course, we, junior year when I had you, we did Macbeth with the amazing special effects from the 1973 version.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That was your class.
Yes. No, were you to Scone? No, cousin Alta Fife, you know.
That's right, Alta Fife. And we kept rewinding it over and over again because it was so, remember the guy was just going like this. It was really, oh my, I had not thought about that until this very moment, Bob.
Yeah.
That's a funny
And
memory.
then we did the same thing for Othello because what had happened was at the end when they were, I believe it was beheading Iago, Othello changed from black to white to black again. If you watch it, the guy who was
You're
cutting his head
kidding.
off, no, he went black to white to black. Yeah. I remember you specifically were like very slow, frame by frame. You're like, what is this?
The actor? You mean the actor
Yeah,
turned
the
from
actor.
black skin to white
Watch,
skin?
if you watch the video, yeah, I don't know if it was because if he couldn't swing it. It was like a split second, like a
That
stuntman
is,
for him. Maybe it was insanity.
I don't remember that even a little bit. I do remember, weren't you guys also the class with a separate piece?
Yes, Ginny and Fiend, me and E.T.
Yep. Right. And
Yep.
then remember there was that song in the film version about Hitler that we couldn't get out of our heads. Hitler, he
Springtime for
only
Hitler.
has one ball. It was just some sort of weird,
Yeah.
emasculating song about
Mhm.
Hitler in the movie version.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean that's all those memories are great. The easel question, I love the easel activity for as long as it lasted. So for people who are not sure what we're talking about, when the kids came in, I had just a giant white easel board every Monday with a question of the week. And the idea was just to get us going for the week and either make ourselves laugh or think. And it was kind of a extension of the hot seat. And then I had to take it away at some point because some people just couldn't take it seriously. I remember there was one terrible racist thing written on there. You can probably guess what the word was, and I lost it. I just couldn't believe this. And it was written like really, really small. And I remember who I thought it was, or at least the class I thought it was in, and I was talking about what a hero you are because you drew it in pencil, really small. If you're going to be a racist, just do it out loud. I was so angry. And then I know I brought it upstairs once I moved from 111 to 206 for another year or two, and I don't remember why I got rid of it. I think maybe I was encouraged to not have it up anymore, which I think that was kind of how my career was going. Like that, the subversive stuff was starting to get caught up to by that point. Do you remember the hot seat at all?
Yeah, yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that. I only
yeah.
remember. I think my first question I picked was number 14, but I don't
Oh
remember the
my,
question.
that's an amazing memory. I
Well,
can't. You also just rattled off
I was thinking, like coming in here, I was thinking like, oh my gosh, And I started thinking about, all the different teachers, and I had a story about Mr. Bowden. You remember when Mr. Bowden took over?
It's his
Yeah.
birthday today. I love Mr.
Oh, yeah.
Bowden. Yeah.
So when I did winter track in high school, we combined with Collingswood.
Yep.
And so we had to take the bus over to Collingswood. So I'd be waiting in C hallway and just sweats or whatever. So one day he comes up and he says, "Excuse me, do you work here?" I'm like, "No, I'm a junior." He goes, "No, seriously, do you work here?" He swore I was like 40 years old.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
you did look older back then. That's true.
yeah, I know, but it was just funny because he even said to me, he goes, I was a bartender. I would have carded everybody, but I never would have carded you. I'm
That's
like, well,
funny.
thank you very much.
That's very John Bowden of him to say.
Yep.
So tell me, like you and I are similar, Bob, in that we really never left school, right?
Right.
We just have never. So talk about your journey from student to teacher, and then on your way to professor, and then what you're doing now.
So when I left Audubon, I went to Rowan, and I was the last class that they said you could graduate in 4 years because they weren't looking at the year-long student teaching yet.
Okay.
Okay. So when I left Audubon, I had gotten a very generous scholarship from my middle schools in Mount Ephraim. And so it was only for 4 years. I'm like, I'm getting done in 4 years. I have to. No way I'm going to afford college otherwise.
Yeah.
So I went and really plotted this out myself. I met with different professors and the advisement and did that. But I was like, I got to do something else. I did track in college like I did in high school. So it was like an extension almost.
Yeah.
But it was different because a lot of the professors I got to know afterwards. The history professors I got to know. There's one of them I'm still good friends with 20 years later. And to be honest, your class, and I told you before, my sister made you a verb. I call that guys my kids.
That's
Because
right,
it was like that. You and a couple other professors at Rowan had with this sort of that jumping off as to like how I wanted to do things because, there's always the whole, why don't you just write this down, give it off, write this down, give it up. But, you got to get a little bit more into it. And so like I kind of did what you did when I had sociology. I went out and did a Tom McHale with John Grisham for Race and Society, and they were like, I don't know how it's going to go. I said, trust me, it'll work. And then that next year I had 3 sections of the class because everybody wanted to do
Wow.
it. But, it didn't last for forever,
Yeah,
obviously,
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
they do whatever. But, it's like, it's more the people you meet. And I know when I did former student Fridays for you, when you had the blog, it would
Yep.
say, pick a professor, not a class.
Yeah.
And I always told my students, I said, listen, if you find a professor or a teacher you really like and you can learn anything from them, take them as much as you can.
Totally
And
agree.
he said the same thing about Miss Cans. He goes, do everything in your power to take Miss Cans.
Yep.
Get at least one class with her, And so
Yep.
that's the same sort of thing. But all the teachers I had at Audubon, some of them have retired,
Yep.
have retired right after I graduated or what have you. But I had a former student who had Miss McKenna
Yeah.
at Camden County for
Yeah.
teaching. Like
Yep.
he mentioned her name, like, oh my gosh, I remember Miss McKenna,
Yeah. Miss McKenna
So
was
it's funny
huge
to
for
see how
me.
this big loop,
Yeah.
like nobody really leaves. Everybody's kind of like all together. I mean,
Yeah.
when I left Triton, Dom Cole was teaching across the hall.
Yep.
So there's Audubon connections everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, listen. The Hot Seat is made possible by the honesty and courage of those who choose to sit in it. So we wanted to add a new segment to the podcast during which I shout out someone who I respect, admire, support. You get it. This week, I'm shouting out my friend and fellow podcaster, Madeline Anderson, whose work I love and respect. She's the author of Girl Dad, stories, lessons, and advice from girl dads and their daughters, and the host of the Girl Dad podcast. I'll be on her show in a couple weeks, and she'll be in the hot seat later this spring. Check her out wherever you get your podcasts.
So you've been a history guy, your whole life. I knew that back then. I know it now. Kind of a tricky question for you. I was thinking about this in the pre-show stuff. If you could think ahead about 50 years, not yourself, but just society, how do you think this chapter in American history will be taught in schools?
I think a lot of it is going to depend on where we are in terms of if we're looking at things very, very skittishly. Because you have to bear in mind, if you look at from the history of the 50s and the 60s and the civil rights movement and all that, there's certain parts of it they teach and there's certain parts of it they don't.
Sure.
So you're like, no, I don't want to touch that, right?
Right.
So I think that's going to be the same thing. How skittish are we going to be?
Right.
And, you look back and when January 6th happened and they were like, well, we had a meeting that night. What are we going to say? And it's hard because so many people living in it have this want to say what they feel.
Yeah.
And as teachers, obviously, you can't pontificate politics.
Right.
It's none of what we're supposed to do.
Yep.
But you have to be able to look back and say, okay, here's both sides of the coin and then make the decision. And that's going to be hard because, I'll use my grandfather as an example. He was in World War II.
Yeah.
Okay? The Navy in World War II. And so at the time when he passed away, he still had a little bit of an edge resentment about Japan. He loved, the people and everything like that. And he didn't have a problem with individual people, but he still had that edge. He goes, you know what? I went to war because of this, I think there's a little bit of an edge there with that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be much different, but it all depends how skittish society is going to be because they're very skittish right now. There's certain things you can say and you can't say.
Yeah.
You're worried about, things like songs anymore. People come out with songs. They're like, oh, wait a minute. Can we play that or can we not play that? And it's a difficult thing. And especially now, we keep going back. We want to dig on everybody's past. Like, for example, you have heard of the Clint Eastwood movie, The Outlaw Josie Wells?
Of course.
Okay, well, it's based off of a book.
Yeah.
And the guy who wrote the book was actually Governor McGovern's speechwriter in Alabama who wrote the Segregation Today, Segregation Tomorrow, Segregation Forever speech.
Right.
And so now that they figured out who this guy is, are they going to pull that off?
Right.
This was his writing, right?
Right.
But they dig so far and they find that information out. It's true. There's nothing to go against it. But the question is, where do we stand with it? And I think that's what's going to happen in 50 years. We're going to have to figure out where we are as a society to see how much of it we want to teach.
Yeah, I think, obviously, how close I am with Casey Clements and Greg Francis. They live right around the corner from me, and they're two of my biggest mentors and history teachers. And I always think about what it would be like to be a history teacher right now. I think it would be equally exciting and terrifying for all the reasons you just mentioned.
Yeah.
And for someone like you who's lived and breathed it for so long, I mean, it has to be both those things. I mean, two things can be true, but as a teacher, yes, we're not supposed to pontificate. Yes, we're not supposed to even give hints about our politics, but I think it's hard to hide. But in a time like this, when everything is so volatile, I don't know how history teachers in the field do it. So I'm not envious, but I'm certainly impressed by them. A quick shift, but in the same sort of universe. You'd mentioned that you're in grad school now, correct?
No, I was, and then there was this thing called COVID, and they took all my funding. So what had happened was I got into a PhD program at Texas State, and it was online. And so everything was getting ready, and all of a sudden, when COVID hit, the governors of all the states said, well, we got to give all these undergrads back their money.
Yeah.
And so the first place it's going to go is from grad students.
Right,
and
right.
My program was geographic education. They're like, we don't give it the money. So, and as a result, the program actually folded. So I wasn't able to do it. Yeah.
Well, you were talking about,
I do have a master's from Rowan.
But you were talking about admin brain. We were talking offline about.
Yeah.
So tell me, because I know what it's like, especially going from secondary to elementary. But what did you mean when you were talking about the idea of shifting to admin brain?
So when shifting to admin brain is twofold. One, when I went for higher education administration.
Yep.
So looking at college, it's a completely different universe, just like secondary to elementary. But the other thing is, I find that when you go into admin brain, as a teacher, there's certain things you have to take into account that you didn't take into account before. Mm-hmm. And you have to, rearrange your thinking. Like, for example, I remember when Mr. Bowden came into Miss Kansas' class and read Native Son. Mm-hmm. He read like the first couple pages of Native Son, and like he obviously really enjoyed the book and everything. But as an administrator, well, should I do that or not? But deep down, this is a great book to teach. Like imagine now you being told, hey, you have to say someone, you can't teach perks, but you taught it because you believed in it, right? So the question then becomes, how do I shift? Because I know deep down in my heart that this is right.
Yep.
But as an administrator, there's a different ball of wax you have to deal with. Because it's not just, the people under you. It's also, you have the administrators over top of you, and then goes up to the superintendent. So it's a very big trickle-down effect. And that's what makes it difficult. You have to shift and think, different ways. And I was looking at athletics, athletic administration, and that in and of itself, I mean, we had Fred Schwartz. He was great, right? Before him was Don Borden, then it was Donna Kobe, now it's Tony Carbone, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's great that we see all these people, but there's certain folks that have that brain that can switch on and back and forth, and some people it's just difficult to get to that point. So it's like once you get it and you're good with it, I think you'll be fine. But sometimes it's shifting that gear that takes a while.
Yeah, I mean, that's as well said as I could have said it. The other thing I would add to that is I don't know how people go from teaching to leadership in the same district, especially when like ours is so small. I just don't know how people turn off the friendship. So I'll just go back to Casey and Greg, right? So let's say I did apply for the Mansion job, not a one-to-one correlation here, but I applied for Mansion when I was right out of grad school and obviously didn't get it. But let's say I got the Audubon High School job, and now I'm in charge of all these people that were my friends or are my friends, and evaluating them and determining their scores and the possibility of stipends and all that stuff, and maybe accelerating or reducing their plans for retirement. I don't think I could do it because of my respect and affinity for those people. Like your hot seat question is taking us right to this. You don't know yet, but I chose it for you like I do every week. And it's very similar to what we're talking about, which is people. So I had to leave, and go to Collinswood to really figure out how to be a leader. And I'm still, 11 years in, very much learning. It is a completely different, because you had mentioned, right, it's the teachers and it's upper administration, but what the biggest net is the community, and figuring out how to ingratiate yourself with your community, which was not mine, right? It was my dad's, but it wasn't mine, and how to also garner their respect. I think the benefit I had is when I started, my children were young, so I could say to my parents, I'm right here with you guys. Like, here's a picture of my kids. I'm doing it right alongside you. At some point, that'll go away because my kids are 16 and 12. Excuse me, but figuring how to balance like being a great leader for teachers, a great leader for kids, a leader. I don't know how a great applies to the upper administration, but and for the community, and then like how that sort of becomes a video game, right? Like they'll leapfrog each other. Sometimes I'm so focused on the community and how to make sure. And what you said earlier is so important. Like I do think so deeply about every email now. Like, is this phrasing going to get me in trouble? Am I going to offend somebody with this? Some of my humor I've had to put away because it might not be appropriate, the sarcasm anymore. I'll give you a perfect example. I was sending out an email to my community before the school year started about 4 years ago, and as I always do. And in it, I said something like, "This is the greatest job I've ever had," which isn't saying much because I worked at Rite Aid and Pizza Hut. Now, in my head, I was just making reference to the fact that my part-time jobs are these things. So I get an angry email from a parent who was just starting saying, "How dare you?" Some people would love to work at Rite Aid, and I'd never thought about that perspective. And I quickly walked it back, and I apologized, and I realized how insensitive it was, but it's certainly not on purpose, right? So that's another shift. It's just like how I communicate with people. So this is really the first time this has come up, the idea of the admin brain. So I'm glad that you brought it up. What are you, before we get to the hot seat question, which is on tap, what's happening right now for you professionally, and then what do you think is next?
Okay, so Rowan, where I was for about a year and a half, they don't have the numbers for my classes.
Got it.
So I'm not doing. So right now I'm working at the Virtua ER in Willingboro.
Okay.
And I'm making appointments for people who are getting discharged.
Okay. So then you'll go right back to teaching whenever a class can fill.
When it pops up, I had this little break, if you will, before. I wound up going from Triton, and I started teaching at a Christian school about a year later.
Yep.
And then I did that for a year and a half, and then I'm back in the ER again. So, hopefully something will pop up. But it's hard. I know I mentioned this to you before, having 16 years experience in one school and then basically almost close to 20 years and trying to get a job somewhere else. Like, well, we can't afford you.
Can't afford you. Exactly. Right. Yeah. You have to either be willing to take less money or go somewhere that is going to pay you what you deserve. And that might be hard. Yeah. All right. So I don't, this isn't number 14 from 2002, but this is the one I picked for you. As always, you'll have two options. I'll give you the first one. You can mull it over. If you don't like it, go ahead and punt it to the second one. But I'm curious about this just because you start talking about this a little bit without knowing. So without choosing a family member, who's the one person in your life who has helped you get to where you are now?
My wife.
Excellent. Tell me about your wife. I've never met her.
So my wife has one of the biggest hearts of anyone I've ever met. And she's very much pushes me to try and realize that I can do things. Like I've always been like, well, oh well, I've never been, I'm just even keel, what have you. Like when I didn't get into college in New Jersey, well, I applied to 3 colleges. I didn't get into TCNJ. I'm like, meh, whatever, one of that's bad. But the other thing too is like she's very much reminding me, like, no, you can do this. You can. Like she's the one that helped persuade me to go for the PhD, to do all these things, and like she, keeps me going, and like it helps me with our daughter, and she always says, remember, we're doing this together. We've never been parents before. I'm like, she's right. And so it's, she's there for me for all sorts of things, and it's like I met her, of course, after my 2 cancer things, but she's still, it's it's an amazing thing. I'm blessed, to have her, and just keep doing the best that I can, and moving forward. Okay, funny story. So my sister-in-law, my wife's one of 4. My younger sister-in-law and brother-in-law, I met them through somebody I used to work with, and I only thought there were 2 of them. I didn't know there was 4.
Right.
So she comes up in the mall of all places. She says, "Hey, I'm going to give your phone number to my sister." I said, "You ain't got a sister?" She goes, "Yeah, I got 2." I'm like, "What do you mean you got 2? There's only you and your brother." Said, "No, there's 4 of us." So she went home and gave my wife this. Some guy's going to call you later. No word, no name, nothing.
What?
Some guy.
That's crazy. Yeah.
And it worked out. I mean, a blind date to a golf course. It worked out.
Where is she from? Around here?
Deptford.
Oh, Deptford. Okay. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Marriage has come up a lot on here, and I really had no idea where you're going to go with that answer. I know you've had a lot of mentors, and you've mentioned a couple on here, and but I think it's wonderful that finding the love of a person like that does change everything. I mean, not only for you, but now you have this wonderful daughter to raise with Chrissy and see what that, because she's 9, you said?
She's 9, but she's 5'2".
Yeah. So she takes after her papa then.
Oh my gosh. I tell you, people are like, how old are you? She goes, I'm 9. Like, you sure you're not 12? I'm like,
yeah.
And she's like, what? I said, you'll get used to it, trust me.
Yeah, that's right. 5'2", my goodness.
I apparently broke a lot of the new teachers when I was a junior.
Yeah.
Because it was just like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
It was funny, but
I'm just so happy for you. I think that it's funny, this show has gone from like digging in and just accepting what life has given you, but then now we're going to end it with, well, it gave you your wife. So whatever you've gone through, I know that, the cancer battles we didn't get into, but that plus anything professional that led you to where you are now also led you to her. So I hope she's listening, or she's going to watch back. I know it's probably her phone that you're on, but please tell her I said I'm happy that she found you and you found her. I'm happy you guys are happy. I'm happy you hopped on the show, and thanks for being resilient and trying to figure it out the whole time. I know it can be tough your first time.
It comes down to just like me. I didn't get a smartphone until about like 2 years ago. I had a flip phone.
I can see it.
I like the flip phone.
Yeah, I can see it. Yep.
But,
Yeah. Bob, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it. It's always good to connect. Please say hi to ET for me. You guys, are you and ET still friends?
Oh yeah, he lives in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
He's got 3 youngins, one in high school.
Do you guys get together at all?
It's me, Ed, Chris Laughlin, and Anthony Price. We all get together once in a while, but Chris is a minister in Michigan now.
Right.
He's living in Pennsylvania. Anthony and I are still in Jersey, but with the kids and everything, it's tough.
Yeah.
But we try to get together when we can. There's always Facebook and so forth.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad. We'll see.
So we all still talk. I mean, because when he went to college in New Jersey, and so we used to go up and bug him at least one weekend a month, and then it got like habitually, like every weekend we would go up and just play Halo on Risk and all sorts of stuff.
He just popped up actually on my Facebook because I guess he was at the Phillies rally yesterday. So he
with his hat,
yeah. So it's good to see him. Bob, it's good to see you. Thanks for hopping on, man. Continue success. If you need me for anything, especially when it comes to finding your way back into the classroom, please let me know.
Will do. You have a good one, okay?
All right, brother. See ya.
Thanks, as always, for tuning in. The Hot Seat is executive produced by myself, Brian Kulak, with podcast production services provided by La Vinci Productions. Before you go, here's how to stay connected. Follow me on Instagram at Brian_Kulak. Check out more resources on my blog over at briankulak.net. Pick up a copy of The Hot Seat or my other book, Level Up Leadership, both available now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And please, if you found value in today's conversation, leave us a rating and a review. It truly helps others discover these stories. Share this episode with someone in your life, hit subscribe, and I'll see you next week for another conversation in The Hot Seat.